As referenced, breaking tonight, an apparent agreement on legislation to address the coronavirus emergency. The House Speaker making that announcement in a release, trying to get some reaction up on Capitol Hill. Congressional correspondent Chad Pergram live there now. Good evening, Chad. That kind of evolved. We heard the president in the Rose Garden saying they're not doing what needs to be done.
Well, the key here was the fact that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, spoke 12 times today, including 3 times during the president's press conference in the Rose Garden. That tells you, despite what the president was saying, is that there was a deal to be had. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi didn't think that the House of Representatives could leave with this still on the table. Remember, the Senate is out. There were a lot of Republicans in the House of Representatives who were squeamish about supporting something that the president wasn't fully behind. Remember, they've had problems with the president on these issues before. Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, learned that the hard way in 2018 when they had an agreement, they thought, on the government funding bill, and then there was the government shutdown. Even Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader, thought there was an agreement earlier this week that he negotiated with Bill Barr, the Attorney General, on FISA, and then that has blown up in the Senate for the time being. So, Republicans in the House are very concerned about getting this right. I spoke with one senior Republican who said that some of the outstanding issues were just technical. This is why they thought they had an agreement maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock this morning, and they might have this bill on the House floor. But this bill will probably pass later tonight with an amalgam of Democrats and Republicans. But what's key here, Brett, is we still don't have the bill text. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi at one point this afternoon seemed poised to go ahead and pass her own bill without any Republican support and basically say, look, we've done our part. The Senate, it's up to you. President Trump, it's up to you. And if you don't pass something, we will see you in November, Brett.
Right. And Chad, that's important. Pelosi in her letter said she listed a few things, including secured paid emergency leave, 2 weeks of paid sick leave, and up to 3 months of paid family and medical leave, and enhanced unemployment insurance. What's key here is that there was some rumbling about other things being put in this bill, extraneous to the coronavirus response. And it may pass the House, with the majority being Democrats, but it still has to get through the Senate. So even if they made a deal, it still has another hurdle to go through.
That's right. And that's what Mitch McConnell was waiting for, just to see what the street could bear in terms of the traffic in the House of Representatives. Now, again, the Senate, unless they do something by extraordinary measures and come back to session over the weekend, they're not going to tee things up until about 5:30 in the Senate. They're going to address FISA then. But when you talk to other Senate Republicans, Roy Blunt, Democrat Chris Coons from Delaware, they think they can pass a bill along the lines of what the House will pass tonight and send that to President Trump. They understand how grave this situation is, and they can't sit this one out.
And very quickly, I mean, these bills, sometimes when there is an emergency and it needs to happen fast and people don't see what's in the bill, that gets to raise some eyebrows.
Absolutely. And that's why people were concerned. They want to see the details. One draft of this that we saw earlier was 106 pages. And keep in mind how tough it was to pass TARP. This was the Troubled Assets Relief Program in response to the financial crisis in 2008. That bill failed in the House of Representatives, despite how grave and dire the situation was. Here they're going to pass a bill. And again, keep in mind, Brett, that this is the easy bill. There's going to be a second tier and a third tier bill, which will be much more complicated in the weeks and months to come.
Yeah, and the president hoping for a payroll tax cut somewhere in there. Chad Pergram, thank you very much for the latest up on Capitol Hill.